Hi everyone. So welcome to today's teaching. I'm Hukui and I'll be your MC for today. And currently we're still waiting for Rinpoche, and we'll get back to you again once he's ready. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's teaching. I'm Fukui, and I'll be your MC for today. Simultaneous translation is available, and we'll be opening the interpretation room shortly. Please click on the bottom right globe icon and select language of preference after this announcement is finished. For Cantonese translation, Jacqueline.
大家好，今日有粵語嘅翻譯，大家可以睇熒幕嘅右下角會撳粵語，就有粵語嘅翻譯，唔該。
In Mandarin, Bella.
稍後我們會開放中文翻譯室，請需要的法友就是點擊下方地球圖標選取中文即可。
And in French, Olivia.
Bonjour à tous, des traductions simultanées sont disponibles. Les chambres d'interprétation seront activées sous peu. Et pour accéder, vous pouvez cliquer sur l'icône du globe qui apparaît en bas à droite de votre écran et sélectionner la langue de votre choix une fois ces annonces terminées.
Japanese, Akiko.
同時通訳のご案内を差し上げます。間もなく、Zoom 画面の右下に通訳のアイコンが出ます。同時通訳の音声をお聞きになりたい方は、そのアイコンをクリックして、ご希望の言語を選んでください。
In Portuguese, Luciano.
Boa noite a todos. Haverá tradução simultânea dos ensinamentos e abriremos a sala em breve. Para acessar a sala, clique no ícone do globo na parte inferior direita da tela e selecione o idioma de sua preferência, assim que esse aviso terminar.
In Russia, Maria.
Здравствуйте, дорогие друзья! Сегодняшнее учение сопровождается синхронным переводом на русский. Чтобы попасть в переводческую комнату, которая откроется совсем скоро, пожалуйста, нажмите на иконку с изображением земного шара, который также скоро появится на вашей панели, и выберите русский язык.
In Spanish, Sarah.
Hola, hay traducción simultánea disponible y en breve tendrán acceso a la sala de interpretación. Por favor, pulsa el icono del globo terráqueo que aparece abajo a la derecha y selecciona el idioma que necesites una vez termine este anuncio.
In Tibetan, Sonam.
정말 쇼게들레 테스텔레 테네 무시 숭셰디 된다 계줄 태가 계줄 협의인빈데니 소소 벽열에 되니게 심바토는 센데 협의인빈은 샤블라 된다 게 담가자요레 디나네니 소소 게디 담르나라는 슈에인.
So we will be opening for interpretation room now. Please hold on for a second. 我们现在将开放翻译室，请稍等。The interpretation rooms are now open. Please click on the bottom right globe icon and select language of preference. Before we commence, participants, please take note of the following. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the teachings. Please submit your questions to the Q&A box. For participants with technical issues, please approach the name having the tech support in brackets, and our tech team will attend to you shortly. Today's teaching will be on loneliness. We are extremely fortunate to have Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche here with us today to give a teaching on this topic. Without further ado, let's invite Rinpoche in. Rinpoche, please.
First of all, sorry for delay. Welcome everyone. I'll try to finish speaking whatever I have to say so that there's more time for question and answer. As a Buddhist, we talk about different kinds of emotions. Like aggression is one of them, greed, desire, ignorance, pride, jealousy, so on and so on. I guess perhaps it's important to include loneliness as one of the emotions, especially now more than ever. In the human history, we are perhaps most connected. But I've been told that perhaps we are also the most lonely now. I think everyone is lonely. You can tell this if you go to just anything, a bookshop. There's a lot about how to counter basically loneliness, even though it's not really explicit in, calling it loneliness. There's so much things going on to counter loneliness. I'm not only talking about things like dating service, just everything. Our career, job, education. If you think deep, it's really all about countering this loneliness. Fashion, food. I thought about bringing the food because Akiko may be able to correct me here. There's a Japanese word, and I hope I'm pronouncing well. The Japanese word is kuchi sabishi. Kuchi sabishi. I heard that in Japanese it means you are not really hungry, but you still eat because your mouth is lonely. So not only, we actually sort of mentally feel lonely, I think, we feel lonely in parts. So what I'm saying is that just loneliness is everywhere. So therefore, we have things like podcast. We have Netflix, Amazon, coffee shop, shopping mall, long Michelin star dinner to counter the loneliness. Basically anything, as long as it occupies your mind. To be occupied, to be engrossed, to get worked up is so important. If modern people are not worked up, it's unbearable. So this is why I thought maybe loneliness is something important to discuss, since this seems to be like quite an important part of our life. But of course, as a Buddhist myself, I will be speaking regarding loneliness through the Buddhist lens. So I was thinking we should really look into three categories Who is lonely? And what is loneliness? And is it possible to counter this loneliness? So first, who is lonely? It has to be something that has a mind, you know, table and chair and bed and those kind, you know, they don't get lonely. It has to be a person, a living being, I guess. Of course, we need to really define what do we mean by living. Here I'm talking more about someone who has mind, cognizance. So, who is lonely? A phenomena that has this notion called me, I, self. As long as you have that, me, self, this phenomena gets lonely. If you don't have this self or I, this notion of I, you know, there's no ground to be lonely. So let's look into what is this self? What is this me? So here I'm using classic Buddhist analysis, if you like. The Buddhists think that I, me, is basically a label, period. That's it. There's nothing much, even though self is the most, what do you call it, powerful label. I mean, it's, so for instance, I'm not paid by these people, but like here is a label here, you know, there's a label. This is important. So people have to pay some attention to this. So here is a label that you can actually take it out. See, aqua panna. That's the label. Aqua panna, this label is pasted on this, right? This bottle with some water in it. So aqua panna is pasted. It's labeled. It's glued. It's yeah. It's pasted on this thing, this bottle. Okay, so we have this idea called self, this label called self. Now, we need to adhere this, we need to paste this label to something. So what is it that we are pasting this label self? This is something that we can maybe analyze. From the Buddhist point of view, the Buddhist conclusion is most probably we have never really managed to find a bottle. We have a label, we have the label, but we are not so sure where we are pasting this on. You understand? This is a very important study in the Buddhist, what do you call it, philosophy called middle way, Madhyamika. So we have a label called self, but we are not so sure where we are pasting this on. Okay. Now, Yet, self is very important. If you are a Buddhist, the Buddhists say, I want to be enlightened. There you go, there's a self. I want to be enlightened. So there's this somebody, a person wishing to be enlightened. If you are a Christian, I guess you will think, I want to be saved. So there is a self that wishes to be saved. Okay. So let's look at where this label self is being pasted. So the Buddhist conclusion is it's pasted on something that is temporarily put together, transitory collections, they call it. They're temporarily put together. It could be substance, like a matter, like atoms, or it could be time. It could be a time also. Some sort of a continuity. Okay, so here, let's pay some attention to this one. When we talk about collection of things, we are already talking about something quite shaky. We are already talking about something okay, so you have 10 things that you are put together. And each of these 10 items are dependent on other 4, 5, 10, 100 different items. So these transitory collections are already dependent on a lot of other things. So you see, so the base that you are labeling the self is very shaky, uncertain. Many times it is just an imaginary, like an idea of forest. For instance, forest. When we talk about forest, we are talking about collection of lot of trees. Collection of lots of trees. We call it trees. I mean forest. Mountain. Collection of lot of dust, lot of earth, a lot of rocks, a lot of, I don't know, grass, a lot of trees, mountain. So the Buddhist conclusion is most probably when we say me, I, this label is pasted on, the Buddhist term is skandhas. 5 different transitory collections. Form, your form. So many times when we say me, you are referring this to your form. But as I said earlier, your form is transitory. It's ever changing. How many times you have cut your hair? How many times you have clipped your nail? Some of you have lost your fingers. And you used to be maybe like 2 kilos. Now you are 80 kilos. You used to be like 2 feet. Now you are 5 feet. Changes all the time, but you still think this is me. So it's arbitrary. It's, what do you call it? It's a complete, forced assumption, right? form. That's one thing that you label your idea or this idea called self. And the form is probably the most, tangible thing you have. At least, you can feel it, you can touch it, you can weigh it. Now it gets even more shakier. Feeling. You are feeling, sometimes good, sometimes bad. Morning you feel something, evening you feel something different. Yet your feeling is a very important, this base that which you pace the idea self. And then perception, your perception, that's another one. And then what we call karmic formation. I'm not going to go through this too long. As I said earlier, I want to interact with people so that people can ask me questions. Karmic formation, what you do is who you are. I'm a dentist. I'm a nurse. I like jogging. Right? Things like this. Your character, right? Who, you identify yourself. I'm a, like your hobbies, I guess. All of this, you identify as you. And then consciousness. Oh, this is a big one. And this is a tough one, actually. What you think, what you think, your thoughts. So all these 5 transitory, always moving, never independent. And there's no such thing as one unit, that which you can say, now this, for instance, like even within your body, you cannot say, out of all this body that I have, this particular is more me than the rest. Probably you can say my heart. Yes, because, heart is kind of important. But fingers are also important. Nails are also important. Otherwise, nail polish, what's the point? All of these are important. You cannot, so you don't have a one unit, that which you call, this is real me. And also, another one, which is even more sad, so to speak, is each of this entity called form, feeling, perception, they are never independent. They are not independent. They are totally corruptible, manipulatable, under the wrath of cause and condition. Easily, it can be. Just a little bit of a comment such as, oh, your nail polish is too pink. That will do some damage to your eye, self. Or you smell good or bad or whatever, it does. It hits, the arrow hits the, right to the target. So what do we know? Okay, remember I was telling you, label, this is where you put the label. Our label, the self, is adhered or pasted on things that are transitory, things that are uncertain, things that are parts. They're all like in many, there's not like one whole thing called body or a feeling. There's so many units. So, might as well, those who are in the Zoom room, you don't see this, but there's like incredible sort of semi-Singaporean Zen garden here. Flowers. Might as well we call this group of phenomena me. This collection. You know what I mean? You could just look at a trash can with all the garbage inside, and you can say, that's me. Actually, you can do that. But of course we don't, because we don't have the habit to do so. So, what does this tell us? This tells us that fundamentally, okay, we are talking about loneliness, by the way, in case you wonder where I am. We are talking about loneliness, and I'm talking about who is lonely? Me, right? I'm lonely. So who is this me? That's what we are talking here. And what I'm saying is, from the Buddhist point of view, the foundation for this me, this self, is very shaky. It's a very shaky foundation, shaky ground. It's a very dodgy ground. What does this mean? It means that fundamentally, we have no reason to be confident. Fundamentally, we have no reason to be confident. So forget the issue of loneliness for the time being. Before we tackle the loneliness, we are not even sure that the self, the me, exists. It's almost, it is just an idea. This is how ridiculous, the human world works. Okay, so the whole idea of self is a story. It's just an imagination. Its very existence is under question. Okay? But attachment to this self, wow, so strong, so strong. And this is the ridiculousness. It's like, probably this should be the most ridiculous things in the world, because there is really no ground, yet you call it self, and then you're not even sure that the ground exists, or it's just a very, very, what do you call it, hodgepodge kind of very unorganized job, so to speak. But the clinging to the self is just so strong. And this clinging has been there for a long time. And the way we cling to this self comes in many different ways, I think. For some, we cling to ourselves by thinking we are the greatest. I'm the greatest. For others, the opposite. We cling to ourselves by thinking I'm the worst. I'm the most useless. I'm the most worthless. Doesn't matter. It's basically a clinging. There's agenda for both. You think you are the greatest, you have an agenda. You think you are the worst, you also have an agenda. So this is why for a Buddhist, in Tibetan, we call it Shenyul Sun Chung, Shenyul Sun Chung, which means basically to put it in a very crude way, to expose the myth of the ground where you paste your label is the core path of Buddhism. It is, what I've just told you is actually the quintessence of what we call vipassana. I know a lot of people think the vipassana is just sitting and, like breathing in and out and, looking at your feeling and all of that. But what vipassana is, the core quintessential sort of essence or the quintessential thing about vipassana is really to topple, to expose, not the label, label is innocent, label. The ground, you see, if this do not exist, this one has no place to, paste. So to expose the this example doesn't work too much, but to expose the uncertainty and all the things I was saying earlier about, your body. So this is why in the vipassana, there is a whole step-by-step instructions on you looking at your body. Right now, we have a very vague idea about the body. Do you even know what kind of body you have? Do you even know you have 10 fingers, first of all? Probably in theory, but you don't walk around being mindful that I have 10 fingers, maybe some have 11, I don't know, maybe, you understand? You are not thinking about that. You are not aware of your body. And you are not aware of your feeling. And even if you are aware of your body, you are always aware of your body in reference to Chanel, Calvin Klein, I don't know, all sorts of other references. You don't think, but those are not your body. So whole point of vipassana is really to dig it out, this baseless, the groundless, where we pace the idea, the notion called self. I'm going to drink some of this. So this is just a short summary about who is lonely. An idea called self, me, that still does not have a proper ground where you paste this label. So you're not so sure whether you even exist. That is lonely. Okay. And then a little bit more about what is loneliness now? I think that I'm sure, you know. But briefly, I think loneliness is very subjective. Okay, so it's not like although some people seem to think the loneliness is something to do with biology, which is fine, because biology, at the end of the day, biology, if you have no mind, the whole biology theory still is irrelevant, right? But as I said, loneliness is very subjective. And I think loneliness comes a lot due to lack of confidence. And why? Why lack of confidence? We have discussed. We are not even sure that this exists, but we just pretend that we exist. It's like if there is a party that is only for ladies only, right? And then you, a man, dress up as a woman and go, throughout the party, you will be nervous, right? Like you could be exposed, you could be found that you are not a woman. Like that, this is how we are all the time. Never really sure this exists. So lack of confidence. And because of lack of this confidence, this fundamental confidence, we don't know how to relate to others. Oh, now this is a big one, isn't it? I mean, you can go to a bookshop. Half the bookshop is about how to relate to others. Management, leadership, etc., etc. And then, of course, it doesn't matter. You may be charming, you may be, you may be very, I don't know, your character may be good, you may be so-called kind, but it doesn't matter. You are still lonely. Character, you could be rowdy, but you could be still lonely. And the worst, now this is the worst one. You are not the only person who is lonely. This is the worst one in one way. If you are the only person who is lonely, you are safe. Because all the others are not lonely, so they would be there to answer many of your questions. But most of the people, almost all, 99.99 people, they are all lonely. So world is basically full of lonely people. John Lennon is lonely. Queen Elizabeth, I'm sure she's lonely. Pink, black, right? Very, very lonely. Pink, black, black, pink, whatever. Black, pink. Sadhguru is very lonely. Me too, I'm very lonely also. I'm very lonely myself. So because of that, I think there's even a term, social creature. We are social creature. Being together is important. This is why these lockdowns and stuff like this is like, it's like the worst thing, isn't it? It's like social distance. It's like so painful for all of us. Social contact, very important. And because of that, I think somehow we human beings always end up thinking like, being together means survival. And being lonely is associated with death. But you see, this is the thing. Two most important things in our life, one already happened for us. The other one is going to happen, which is birth and the death. And how did we do it? Alone. Except for some twins, I think. But I don't know whether they really sort of talk to each other. But we do this two most important thing alone. And actually, it's even more painful in one way. For instance, this bottle I see, what I see, you will never see. Of course, we all agree that, oh, we are all looking at the same bottle, but we are not, actually not. Scientifically also. What I see, how I perceive, remember perception? You will never be able to see it. So this is why no common ground. And this is how we communicate also. I speak something, I've been speaking all this time, and you all think that, oh yeah, he's speaking this. But you are hearing what I say, and you are interpreting what I say. And I think I will assume that you are understanding what I say. That's okay. That's about all what we call communication. But as I said, we long to be together. Social contact is important. And therefore, art of getting along well with others, so important. I'm sure you know this. In the family situation, school, job, I don't know, whatever, company, working with a colleague, 90% of your skill or 90% of your achievement will be how good are you, getting along with other people, which, yeah. But again, I want to remind you, these are difficult. These are difficult because, as I said earlier, fundamentally, there is this doubt on existence of the self. Yet, human beings, we have been, we are doing, we have done. We apply so many methods to prove the existence of ourself, to validate this self, to solidify the self. I would say 90% of our endeavor is something to do with, trying to prove the existence of this self. Everything, hair color, tattoo, how you how you present yourself, how you talk. But there's always a strong contradiction. Part of us, as I have begun today, part of us really wish to connect to others. But the other part, you see, this is why this idea, self, is something that we should really look into through techniques such as Vipassana, because this self wants to connect, but this self connect and like get along. This self don't want to be rejected. This self want to be invited. This self want to be included. But this self also wishes to be unique and different. This self wishes to stand out. This self wishes to be one and only kind of thing. So this is what I was saying, like the hairstyle, the tattoo, the way we walk, the way we talk, where we wear. I mean, you can observe among ourselves. We do all kinds of things to make ourselves special or to get the attention together. It's very contradictory, Some talk like, I don't know, some squeak, some, I don't know, some talk like, even if they are 80 years old, they talk like babies. Because, I don't know, some people think that's cute. And thanks to some culture, I don't want to say too much, being cute has also gained some attention. All of this makes things so complicated. And then came another challenge. Modernization, which I think for a lot of us is basically a Westernization. So what does that mean? Individualism is very important. Individual rights, individual thinking is absolutely important. There's like complete obsession to this. So much so that if you talk about a responsibility, if anybody even talks about a responsibility, you get categorized as people who belong to the museum. Individualism is so important. And this makes it so difficult because in the modern world, we care so much about what other people think. I mean, just look at our Instagram. The whole emojis, you can, the whole emoji, each and every one of them is geared towards how other people think. Things like thumbs up, thumbs down, all of that, smile, do not smile, all of this is something to do with how much we care obsessively about what other people think. But the interesting thing is, more and more, the modern people understand less and less about the others. It's a very, very strange contradiction. We want other people to we care about what other people think, but we understand less about what other people, not really about, just about you, but we really don't understand other people. Yet we demand people like you. Kind of very difficult project, this one. And suspicion. Of course, fundamentally, because the idea, the notion of self is deeply rooted to this illusion called self. That's really, there's no ground. Because of that comes loneliness, as I said earlier. And because of the loneliness, no trust. I think not trusting yourself and not trusting others. Basically, lot of, breeding of suspicion. We don't trust other people. We don't trust other people's intention. And I think this then ends up making us more and more self-centered. So see how complicated things are. This. Okay. The third. Can we do something about this? This loneliness. Well, from the Buddhist point of view, until you are relieved from finding out that the base of this self is an illusion, to really, to really liberate yourself from the loneliness is going to be difficult. If you manage to sort of have even a glimpse of this illusory label, you will have a relief. It's a bit like a nightmare, right? It's like in the middle of the nightmare, if you think, oh, this is just a dream, then the nightmare suddenly is not a nightmare anymore, instantly. But until you know it's a nightmare, oh, it can really unsettle you. But nevertheless, what we could do, now this is coming from the Buddhist training called Lojong, which means mind training. First important thing is you need to know loneliness. You need to identify it. That's a difficult one, This is why when Buddha taught so-called Four Noble Truths, the first noble truth, no suffering, no dukkha. This is a difficult one because many times we really don't know the dukkha as a dukkha, suffering as a suffering, pain as a pain. Many times we don't even, we don't see the loneliness. We don't acknowledge the loneliness as a loneliness because we are busy judging, or we are busy trying to find a fix to this loneliness. So yes, it's difficult to really, by the time we actually do feel lonely, like empty apartment, every time you come back home, dreading long weekends, 400th time to the botanical garden, walk, the same thing, I don't know. By then it's already matured as gross gross sort of loneliness. But we are talking about tackling when it is the cause level, so to speak. So this is a difficult one, but it's it can be trained. So for that, Buddhists would say one need to discuss like this. One need to talk about it. One need to expose. One need to dig it out. One need to, hear and contemplate on loneliness. So this, a Buddhist would say a discussion like this is important. And then, of course, contemplation and application of the practice. So what we usually do when we feel lonely, we try to numb ourselves. We try to numb, make ourselves unconscious almost. Because, it's like a Panadol strategy. Or we also deny. So there's this constant deny. Most of the method that we apply, such as, social media, entertainment, the Buddhists would think they actually are methods to numb ourselves. Okay, so acknowledging, watching, and seeing the loneliness and its cause, of course. But also there are other mind training, such as a very important one in the Mahayana Buddhism. It's called bodhicitta, thinking that I and others are equal and same. This really makes sense because lonely people, they think they are the only one who is lonely. All the others are having a, like green time, But it's actually not. I told you, everybody from John Lennon, from Elizabeth, from everyone, they're lonely. So when everyone is lonely, then somehow you belong to you connect very well with the lonely community, so to speak. So then I think you have much more heart, generosity, and openness. So this like hello weekend, empty apartment, all of this will not sort of bother you. You will also realize that just as how you fear being alone, all the others also do. And then if you can, there's another bodhicitta practice, which is exchanging oneself and the others. That's a very, very, special Mahayana method. Basically, wishing everybody's loneliness or others' loneliness come to you. And it's actually a very powerful method because it's like counter your normal habitual pattern. Your normal habitual pattern is when you are lonely, you become self-centered. Or you numb yourself. This time you do the opposite. When you are lonely, you be instead of being self-centered, may everybody's loneliness come to you. So it's a mind training. And you doing that without expectation. Actually, this is another big one. Expectation is like the fertilizer for the loneliness. It's the worst, actually. It's a really, really bad one, but I think we can talk about this another time. And then, if you have time and means and wish, some bodhisattva activities, triggered by wish to awaken others. You do all kinds of good deeds, philanthropy, I don't know, gardening, painting, whatever. And if you feel like applying more exotic method to counter your loneliness, by all means, mantras, mudras, rituals, they actually are very good. Rituals are so important. And it can be, some of them can be self-made. Create a ritual. And I don't know, shrine. Creating a shrine. Flower arrangement. And routine. Most of the lonely people, they don't like routine. And when they don't have a routine, it makes them more lonely because they don't know what to do. But even if it is a really sort of what do you call it? Ridiculous routine, like some really childish kind of routine. Routine can be very helpful. And then discipline, of course. And all these mind training that I'm talking, like routine, like, I don't know, like exercise, or like mantras, like act of generosity, philanthropy, etc. They must, if you can do this with the motivation to define your value, because the way you value things also can really change the way you feel lonely or not. Many times it is our value, and I'm talking not just all the values, material, spiritual, emotional, like friendship, for instance. Yeah, we should value friendship, but to what extent? Maybe some balance might save you from loneliness. Because if you value a friendship obsessively, blindly, and with a lot of expectations, and then you text this person, and you wait for the reply instantly, and when that doesn't happen, loneliness comes. Right? So the way we value everything, how you value your life, you're defining, coming to a conclusion of your value, job, friendship, family, I don't know, everything. This could all counter loneliness. But I want to just end this by saying, as a Buddhist, we should aspire to expose this groundlessness of the label self, because that clinging to this groundless self is the real cause of the loneliness. I think I spoke too much, so maybe if you have any questions.
Thank you, Rinpoche. So we will now proceed with the Q&A session. And Rinpoche, I have a first question here. So it's from Veronica. Sometimes the path is very lonely and tough. How do we find the strength to continue?
I think we have already spoken this for 1 hour.
Shall I move on to the next question, Rinpoche?
Yes.
All
Otherwise,
right.
it's too lonely.
Okay. For the second question, how do we promote the benefits of Buddhism mindfulness, especially in an era of secular mindfulness? What are the differences between them actually?
Can you repeat that again?
Sure, Rinpoche. So the question is, how do we promote the benefits of Buddhism mindfulness, especially in an era of secular mindfulness? So secular mindfulness refers to those non-Buddhist mindfulness.
Yeah. I always have a problem with something called secular. I don't think there's anything that really is secular, actually. But because you see, language is fundamentally, language is not really secular. Anyway, I think those who have seen the value of such as, like the Vipassana. For those who have seen this value, with the compassion and kindness, I think you can sort of waive the secular mindfulness first to make them have appetite. And I don't know, do whatever you need to do to really not only rescue them from this endless hope and fear and samsara, but even rescue them from secular mindfulness.
Thank you, Rinpoche. And for the third question, it is why am I lonely? And whether is loneliness worthy of our investment?
While, can you repeat that again?
So I think the first part of the question, you have addressed it on why am I lonely? The second part of the question is loneliness worthy of our investment?
I think the first question I've already said quite a lot.
Yes.
The second one, actually, that's an interesting question. You see, and I like the usage of investment. Did you say that, investment? I like that word.
Yes.
Yes. You can be savvy. If you are savvy, all garbage, you can do something with this garbage. You know, investment. I think this is really good. Yeah. And you know, loneliness, I mean, now I'm really talking, you know, like on a human level, you know, because thanks to loneliness, there's like beautiful poetry, John Lennon, I don't know, all that thanks to loneliness. It's almost safe to say 80% of the Chinese songs are lonely songs, no? And I think 90% of the Bhutanese songs are lonely songs. 99%, I think. It's all about missing you, this, that. So yes, it can be very beautiful emotion. I mean, talking totally on a worldly context. So yes, I mean, this loneliness can trigger you to understand who is lonely and how to tackle with that, right? So we can definitely invest on this.
Thank you, Rinpoche, for your answer. And for the fourth question, is lifelong retreat enjoying loneliness or resolving loneliness?
Is
lifelong retreat enjoying loneliness or resolving loneliness?
Lifelong retreat? It depends with what kind of practitioner you are, I guess. I mean, for the Buddhists, when they do retreat, the idea of doing retreat, intention of doing retreat, is really to train them, to assist their training the mind. I'm sure a lot of people, especially those who are in the beginning stage, I'm sure they do feel lonely and all of that. But bringing the loneliness is probably not necessarily their main goal. It's going to be there anyway. But it's an interesting thought.
Instead of enjoying loneliness while in the retreat, yeah, it's a byproduct of the retreat, right? And for the
yeah, you can say this. You know, we talked about that earlier. You know, we are so contradictory. You know, like we want to be alone, but we want to be with people. You know, it's very difficult. It's so difficult. We want to be special, but we want to be also accepted. We want to be fit in. You know, we want to have elephant feet, but we want to also put our feet in chicken's shoes, I guess. I don't know, like it's just so complicated, human mind.
I hear you, Rinpoche. For our fifth question, as our practice deepens, more and more, we feel out of place with people around us and with the mundane world. How do we deal with this kind of loneliness and suffering?
As we deepen our practice, we feel
more and more out of touch with the
I
outside
see.
world.
I don't know where this question is coming from, but if it is coming from some sort of awareness, I would say this kind of sadness is good. You know, now please, those who are listening to this answer, you know, you have to verify this a little bit. I'm strictly speaking from one angle. It is true that when you practice, such as Vipassana or any kind of Buddhist practice, because Buddhist practice has so much to do with the truth, in other words, looking at life from the bird's eye view, then initially it could bring you to go through this stage of sadness for some people. I think many lamas call it genuine heart of sadness. It's supposedly very priceless. It's supposedly very, very important. You see, for most of us, we only see the life from one angle. So we are sort of numb, right? We are sort of numb. We feel kind of excited. We feel, and then that's how, and then we, you know, we get disappointed, and then the next excitement, so on and so forth. But so-called practitioners, you know, as their practice progresses, they're no more like this kid who is looking at the life from one angle. So they see from many angles. So then they kind of say, well, you know, they don't get too excited, or you understand. So yes, you know, you are weekly gathering in some bar, or I don't know, monthly family gathering, or your other friends, small talks, conversations, they may become less and less interesting for you. But if you want to go out of this zone, then I mean, that's what you want, right? That's what you are aiming for. And I think you should really push, because once you get out of that, then you will not be caught by all the game. You see, right now, we play a game, but then slowly we forget it's a game. Then we get so worked up and so, you know, like emotional. And then we lose our game. Then we play the next game. Or if we win the game, but we still play the next game. After a while, it's just a game. And it's nice. If you know it's a game, then you play. If you win, yeah, it's okay. Not a big deal. If you lose, not a big deal. And I think you become more confident.
Thank you, Rinpoche, for your answer. For the next question is Jay. He asked, I don't really understand the Buddhist practice of helping others. If the self and others arise at the same time, how can I be liberating through cherishing others more than the self?
Okay, this is a more complicated question. And I think the question is gearing towards the more ultimate teaching. And this is actually, you know, if you are talking about ultimate, of course, even the very notion of help is an illusion. self is an illusion. Others is an illusion. Help is an illusion. Problem is an illusion. Solving is an illusion. So, but till you know this, practically, emotionally, you are still a subject of the idea of self, idea of other, and therefore idea of helping, not helping, all that. So that's what I was saying earlier, two things you can do. Ultimately, really expose the real color of the self. That's what we aim for. But meanwhile, we do things like relative bodhicitta.
Thank you, Rinpoche. We have a question from Vladimir from Russia. He asked how to open your heart to this world through all the trauma and pain.
Here you can, we were talking about bodhicitta. And I'm sure, okay, the human beings always wish to, they put more emphasis on fixing things, right away, physically, at once. Current problem. That's how human mind works, which is fine. If we can do it, by all means we should do it. But more importantly, we should try to fix the cause and condition of from the beginning. Our ignorance, enemies' ignorance, friends' ignorance, your own ignorance. Others' ignorance. All this need to be sorted out. So this is why, to do that, aspiration bodhicitta, I would say for now, aspiration bodhicitta, which is like prayers. And I know for most of the modern people, they think, oh, prayer is just, mouthing word. It's not really, solving the real problem. But look, how many times we try to solve the problem from the time immemorial. Problem always there. This is because, like Shantadeva said, if you want to smoothen the whole earth, it's impossible to get that much leather. So instead, wear a pair of shoes. Wherever you walk, it will be smooth. So aspiration bodhicitta, which will just, generate kind, compassion. If more of that happens, if in the world, if we could see billboards where subject of compassion, kindness, understanding others, empathy, if we could see more and more of that on the billboards, I don't know, on T-shirts, on, I don't know, all kinds of, subliminal ads. If our leaders pay some attention, and they will, if the people demand that, they will, because they need our vote. So if we could do that, of course, peace will have chance. there has been a lot of time where we had peace and harmony. But our own insecurity, and of course the greed and one-sided sort of values have always destroyed. So I think the modern people really, as much as they pay attention to quick fix, practical, physical fix, I really wish they also fix their intention, good wish. That's so important. I know the modern people think good wish is just a wish. But wow, the wish is so strong. It is the mind that is doing things, you know. If we can teach good wish, kindness, and all of that in schools, then yeah, if we should pray that one day our politicians will campaign for their election, selling good wish, kindness, compassion. It can happen. It can happen. We need to outsmart them. Easy, actually. We are just, I don't know why we are not doing it. It's actually very easy.
Thank you, Rinpoche. For the next question, the question is, would like to ask for advice. What would be the most effective methods to apply when the sense of loneliness is at its strongest? Because when feeling lonely, we would usually succumb to our desire or karma.
Okay, this is a very big question, and it has, I think we can have so many different methods. And I don't know who's asking this question. I mean, if the person is familiar with the Buddhist training or not, so on and so forth. But generally, when loneliness is at its most astute and pronounced or highest level, if you can bear, I would say the most easy and applicable method is watching that loneliness. I know it sounds sort of strange, but the thing is this: we don't look at the loneliness enough. We are always busy looking at a solution to fix this. You understand? So instead of solutions, this time just look at the loneliness. We are talking like a few minutes, even that. Try that. This should do something quite amazing, because otherwise, if you get distracted to solutions, it may numb you for a while, but then it comes back. And next time, you need to have extra shot of numbing whatever juice.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Okay.
For our next question, we would like to ask, how do we approach loneliness in the area of dating and love? Sometimes it's said to be two lonely people coming together, and how can we date without expectations?
That's a difficult one. Can I pass that?
Sure, Rinpoche. We'll move on to the next question. Our next question is by Mao Hu from China. He asked a very interesting question. Why do we feel even lonelier after having a big party?
I just told you, these numbing, solutions are like that.
So it doesn't end, and what happens is that we should observe it instead.
Yeah, this is so next time I'm sure you will go to party. You are already planning for the next party, I'm very sure. Since you are going to go to the party, probably it's tonight. Here is my suggestion. Today, as you go to the party, as you comb your hair, I don't know, change your outfit, tell yourself, after the party, I'm going to get more lonely. You understand? Tell that. In fact, I would suggest while you are having partying, you should even chant that. Not quite, maybe not like loudly, but quietly. I'm going to get lonely. I'm going to get lonely, aren't I? Like that. I think this will help.
So for our next question, it's from Vidya in Singapore.
How many questions do you have?
Rinpoche, we have many questions.
Oh gosh, okay.
So it's from Vidya, and the question is, why am I so scared about the deaths of my family members? Is it because I am afraid of being lonely?
Must be. Of course. Who is not? So,
and it's a natural thing, right?
Yeah, so I would say appreciate right now as much as you can. Even you are fighting with your family. Even whatever, just appreciate the table, the cloth, I don't know, the mopping, like everything, whatever you have in your family, just appreciate, just enjoy. Do, look at the, I don't know, look at the vacuum machine and think, wow, the family vacuum machine. This is like our vacuum machine, like that.
Understood, Rinpoche. Thank you very much. Question 13 is a very interesting question. It's asking, was the Buddha ever lonely?
This is an important question. You see, I have this aspiration to write a film based on the life of the Buddha. And, in the film, your character needs some weakness, right? Otherwise, stories means nothing. I mean, if the character is strong right from the, like beginning all the way to the end, nothing to watch. So your character needs a bit of a, problem or some sort of a weakness. And when I'm reading the life of the Buddha, especially coming from the Theravada tradition, it's really nice. Because in the Mahayana tradition, like as always, Mahayana always talk beyond this box. For Mahayana, 1 and 1 million means sort of same thing. You understand? Yes. So it's like always up here, which is great. But in the Theravada tradition, it's very, very down to earth. So the Buddha is, they portray, especially before he achieved the enlightenment, he was a normal human being. So so as I write, as a writer's imagination, I write like, well, under the, Nagroda tree, or, Bodhi tree, as he's doing the penance. Yeah, he must have missed his palace life. Rahula, his son, Yashodhara. And, we say, the Buddhists say he had a penance 6 years. If he is not missing anyone, what is the penance? It's basically like, like moving from one good bedroom to another good bedroom. There's no penance. So if there's a penance, he has to really, I'm sure, in that 6 years, he must have, okay, that's it, I'm going back to Kapilavastu tomorrow.
Yes, Rinpoche.
Okay.
Then to add on to the question, Rinpoche, so you mentioned that the Buddha could have been lonely during the 6 years. What about after that 6 years?
After the 6 years? Oh, yes. Gosh, now you are talking about, well, after the 6 years, again, from the Theravada tradition, he went back to Shakya. He went back to Kapilavastu to visit his parents. He even went, supposedly he went to Tushita heaven to meet his mother. So surely he must have thought, well, it's time to, good to reunite. But then he made everybody monk and nun. Yeah.
Thank you, Rinpoche. For our next question, it's from Shanghai. He says that I'm now in Shanghai, and since the lockdown started 2 weeks ago, I have been so anxious to check group messages. Shall I be aware of the loneliness, or shall I shut off and do more practice?
Do both.
Okay. Jay, that was the last question.
Okay, very good. Well, I don't know what to say. I don't know whether to say, may you not be lonely, because as someone put it very nicely, loneliness can be also very good product, you can invest on this. Well, I guess I can only say, I hope that you know how to deal with the loneliness. Be savvy with the loneliness. I think there's a lot you can really do with the loneliness. Even on a very mundane level, when we get lonely, that's the time we get to listen to some good music. If we are not lonely, I don't think the music, we don't give chance to the music, stuff like that. So, but I hope that you will pay a little bit of attention to the thing that I was talking about, the label self. That's an important one. This me, it's a label. There's nothing solid, independent, tangible, somewhere that you can point. And yet, wow, this brought us all kinds of challenges and lots of fun also. And this is something that you need to pay attention. And Buddhism, in a nutshell, is really a study of self. That is the real aim. And I think it's important. I don't know, somehow I just remember this story. It's a very ancient Indian story. There was two great scholars, and one of them got married and he had a son. And this scholar sent his son to the other scholar to learn, because, as a father, he can't really teach. He can a little bit, but there's always this father-son thing. He sent his son to the other scholar. Another scholar taught a lot, and son become very learned. And the son comes back proudly, I have learned so much. And the father said, no, you should go back. That guy has a lot of things to teach. You still are not good enough. So this happened several times. Anyway, the other scholar, the teacher, said, finally, I have really nothing to teach anymore. You should go back. So the son went back. And then the father said, no, you still haven't learned anything. You have to go back. So the teacher said, I knew he's going to send you back, because he and your father and me, we have learned from the same guru. And I know your father. I knew he's going to send you back. But anyway, I have nothing to teach you. But since your father sent you to me, I will tell you to do this. So the teacher had 100 cow. He gave it to the son, saying that, look, there's 100 cow. Only when 100 cow become 1,000 cow, you come back. Until then, I don't want to see you. And don't bring your books and stuff like that, because you will be alone with the 100 cow. Those cows, they don't read books. None of this works. So he was sent. And must have taken several years, 1,000 cows. And then one day he come back and he prostrates to his guru, the teacher, and said he had finally learned. So I think it comes from Upanishad. Anyway, the idea is that until you know the self, and that which no one really can teach you, you have to sort of discover yourself. You are not a master of anything. And just to end this, the Buddhists will go further. So I think, as a Zen master said, to study Buddhism is to study yourself. And to study yourself is to really know that there is no self. But this one you need to know, not just intellectually, but emotionally. And I think if you know that even a glimpse, lots and lots of our problem can be fixed, including your rice cooker. I'm serious. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, Rinpoche, for giving us this precious teaching. And thank you all for being such wonderful audience. Till we meet again, take care and goodbye.
诸佛正法贤圣僧，直至菩提永归依。我以所修诸善根，为利众生愿成佛。诸佛正法贤圣僧，直至菩提永归依。我以所修诸善根，为利众生愿成佛。诸佛正法贤圣僧，直至菩提永归依。我以所